All right, everyone, welcome to the weekly Helm developer meeting for September 5th, 2024. This meeting is recorded and this project is under the control of the CNCF. So the CNCF code of conduct does apply. If you don't like that, drop off. You can watch the recording later, but let's get started. Any announcements? I usually do this prior, since last minute's goodness. All right. With that, we can just drop right back into discussions. Emery, are you on? Double check. Look. Emery is not here. He did have maintainers to review a PR. I will put the PR link in the chat if we can get someone to take a glance.
Yeah, this is one that's been on my radar for a little bit. And it was really getting other things done in the last week or two that I haven't had a chance to do it. We had some activity around getting the release candidate out, which is now out, and just getting some other stuff ready for that. This has been on my radar, but it's one of the many. So I've reviewed it. I had feedback. I just haven't been able to get back to that one yet.
Yeah, awesome. The next one's actually mine, and it was a PR I had to bring in Go vulnerability check. George, you had you were pretty passionate on that response, and I was just trying to see if I can get some direction so I can fix from you, George.
So I passionate maybe was a long response. I have had a reasonable amount of experience with the CVE checks and people being like, oh, we should have a thing which detects CVEs and then block PRs. and then this is really annoying because someone makes a PR and it's fixing a typo in a README document and there's an existing CVE and the PR gets blocked. And I won't use an expletive, but it's kind of a bad workflow. But that said, like if there's nothing else, like Go Von check may provide value. So we could certainly consider it. It's just we probably would want to be able to override, when I say we, whoever's merging the PR would probably want to be able to override the check, if that makes sense.
Okay. Would it make sense to move the vulnerability check to its own action and have it run daily, and then we can address it on there? Or would that be a better, workflow in your opinion?
Yes, because I think, well, that's the other thing I brought up is, yeah, we don't want to rely on people making PRs to find CVE. So I do think, I do think a periodic basis is a better option, if that makes sense to other people. And this is also based on my understanding of how this plugin works. If my understanding is wrong, then my rationale for these comments is probably wrong as well. So we should maybe confirm.
Yeah. So Joe, Joe, I wanted to throw this over to you because you created the original one, and the reason Robert created another one is between when you created yours and when we finally got around to it, there became an official action, and so Robert went off and created one based on the official action to do what you had, and it was just a follow-up to that.
So, what if we only triggered it if GoSum changed? That's the only time it would really matter, right?
So move it to a separate action but it just targets the same triggers from the GitHub Actions pull request or whatever it is. I don't remember off the top of my head, and then just have it look at one file. Or when that one file is, I see what you're saying.
I figured out how to do it because I haven't done it in a long time. But you can basically configure that if this file changes, then you can run this action.
Okay. Let me take that as a. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say that sounds pretty reasonable, because that is addressing the case where if someone introduces a PR which makes a CV, then we do want to block that.
And then Matt's going to bring up to the issue that I just thought of, which is that if that file doesn't change, then the action doesn't run, and if it's a blocking action, then it'll be blocked.
No, and you just make it a separate action that only runs if, this should not be hard. You just make it an action that only runs if the GoSum file is changed. And because we keep up with our Go versions, right? We don't specify the patch, we only specify the minor and keep up. We're always running with the latest Go, so those should automatically be handled. And so this is really going to impact dependencies more than anything else. Or yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the clarity. Sorry.
One question on this. What if within a module, we use a brand new package? There is an edge case where we use a package in a module and the GoSum file doesn't change because we're using a new package within a pre-existing module. And that new package introduces something as this new code path that has something, right? And I'm okay missing that, but there is that edge case there where we use a new package within a module and we don't run Go vulnerability check, so it doesn't pick it up. There's an edge case there, but I'm okay with that edge case. It's still an improvement over what we have today.
Would we want to then do a Go vulnerability check periodically, just run one daily, just see if there's any BS and to cover your edge case, and then have it another one that runs only when GoSum check is run, so you can cover those edge cases?
Sure.
Okay.
So the other thing, so if my understanding is correct, I'll take it on myself to make an issue upstream on the Go Von Check plugin to see if they want to accept this kind of suggestion that they maybe do a difference or a periodic for PRs or a periodic timer.
We do that within the action. Could we do that? Sorry,
I was loosely without, so we don't have to go into the details here. I to take my comments that I made on your PR and basically make an issue upstream.
Okay.
See where that goes, and maybe we could get an improvement to the plugin.
Awesome. Thank you guys for your clarity. And I will try to get to this week. Moving on. Let me check to see if Emery's on. Nope. We'll come back to him. Tyler, you have a PR here. I will put it in the chat. Tyler, the floor is yours.
Hey, my name is Tyler. I'm a maintainer of the OpenTelemetry at Helm charts. We've got an issue with one of our charts that's using another chart and some problem overriding default values. Just wanted to bring this issue to the group's attention again because it's something that I would like to see fixed. I'm curious if there's interest from the approvers and maintainers, and if not, is there something that I can do to help push this work forward?
Oh, this challenge. Let's just say that we do this several times. I know Matt and I gave it a try some time ago and broke it and had to revert it. There are so many different edge cases that we are trying to account for, and yeah. Well, we want to.
This is a hard one. Could we get some tests for this by chance? I think, is this your pull request?
No, just one that I saw that's attempting to fix the problem. I don't know if it's a correct fix. I don't know the Helm code base well enough.
Okay, no, that's fine. I can comment on this one and ask for tests because I think that's one of the things we're going to want around this. Anytime we touch this part of the code base, we very much want tests because it's so touchy that once we get it into the state we want it in, then we want to make sure we don't break that in the future, even accidentally. So this is an area where we need tests. I'd have to go through the functionality to see exactly what was intended here. And make sure we're not doing something outside what the intent was, but I can add this on the list of many things to look at.
Okay, thank you. Awesome.
Thanks, Matt. Moving on, George, the floor is yours. You're talking about Helm lint ignore versus chart YAML rules.
Real quick though.
Sorry.
I was trying to say something, but I was muted. If Matt, when you add that comment, if you could also reference the reversion so that they could see what other things failed, so they could add that to the test, that'd be good.
Okay. We reverted, then we went back and add more stuff in after the reversion that hopefully fixed some of the stuff. But yes, this is a very touchy place.
George, floor is yours, sir.
So this hip here has been contributed where someone would like to add a Helm lint ignore, at least in the current proposal file. My immediate thought is, if we want a way to ignore lint rules, do you think these should be in a file which should be checked into source control Helm lint ignore, or do you think we should have in chart.yaml a way to ignore lint rules? With the probably the primary difference being is that if they're in the chart.yaml, then they'll travel with the chart. So if you pull a chart and run Helm lints, you wouldn't see the failures which someone had previously ignored, which may also have an impact on if you are running lints for dependencies, which will pull charts. So anyway, I thought I'd raise this so that I could also address this hip with other people's thoughts in mind. So I think this is going to be like a decision point.
Yeah. My thoughts on it are, we want to make sure that it's packaged up and shipped with the chart, whatever it is, the lint rules. And I would look at the patterns that are otherwise expected out there, right? What do other tools do? What kind of IDE integration? Because this is a developer experience thing to ask, how do you do it? And I actually don't know how everybody else is doing this kind of lint ignore rules to know if there's any kind of de facto standard or anything like that. So I would investigate that first and use that as a reference to go for a particular style, but I haven't done any of that.
Yeah, I definitely hear what you're saying. The primary difference, I think, with Helm is that we already have a metadata for the chart, versus a YAML lint. You just add a .yaml lint config file, because there's no other place to put it.
Well, there's also when you have this kind of stuff, if it goes into the chart, then that's going to get propagated to the index.yaml files. That's then going to get starred in the Helm secret. And so those are places you're not necessarily going to want all of that information, I don't think. And so by having it in a separate file, then it doesn't propagate it to all of those other places.
Okay, so we want to package it. I'm on the same page there, but we don't want it to be in releases. Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, great. Thank you, George. That is it for discussions. Anyone have anything for hip review?
There was another issue somebody had asked about, and it was there were a couple of people asking about the multi-secret storage. And the update on that one is I've already given a little feedback on it, but I have it open and I've been testing it and playing around with it because I am poking at it and reviewing it. It's been slow going because I only get so much time, but that is one of those active ones that I have open and am looking at the implications of, trying to see if there's anything I haven't thought of before we go through. So just know that is under current active review.
And Matt, yeah, that was something that I wanted to discuss with you, because I think one of the points that you had raised as a suggestion, should we introduce a new secret type to essentially strongly distinguish between, let's say, single secret releases and multi-secret releases. And thinking about it, that creates, and I understand obviously your concern about coexistence between old user or users of old versions and new users. But I think if you use a different secret type, it introduces so many downsides for users that I was wondering about that, and I was hoping that you and I, or maybe in the group, we could have a conversation on the pros and cons.
Certainly.
I understand your concern, but on the other side, if we did a global switch for saying, a larger chart suddenly requires multi-secret and goes into chunking mode. If we then switch essentially the storage driver completely, it essentially separates even more the old users or the old version user and the new version users, versus our design had been more that we would look at it as the chunking as an enhancement of the single secret. And for those releases that can happily work with a single release, that we maintain consistency between somebody having an old client and somebody using a new client, they can jointly manage a release stream of such an application that over time got larger. And I was rather feeling that if we introduced a complete new storage type, that we would completely separate users from the old and the new, because we would essentially just you and I managed a release together, version 1 to 5, it worked fine. Then the application became bigger, multi-chunking is multi-secret is now required. If I now converted everything to chunked, you would not even see the release anymore. And so with that, I think the experience for somebody an old client would even get worse. As opposed to saying that the multi-secret driver attempts to store single secret in, and obviously the majority of cases will not require chunking, right? 1 megabyte is for 99% of applications probably good enough. And that was just a thing where I wanted to check with you, did we understand your comment correctly that you prefer the secret, a parallel secret type? Because I think the experience would get worse relative to saying, if you and I manage an application together, I need to tell you that now you need to have a new Helm version, or the application would tell you that the chart became too big. And that's where I was not sure, did we maybe misunderstand even your comment?
And so what happens when somebody who's on a normal secret tries to look at something that's chunked? If I remember it, is it a panic? I've got to go look. The client does not operate properly, and you don't get a message as well.
Exactly. I mean, an old version, that's the thing where we're still trying to see, could we put something into the single secret, let's say into the first secret, such an old client could at least still decode it and maybe have a description or something as a human readable thing. But the primary problem is, how can we, have an old client understand that the secret, stops? But on the other side, at the moment, there's also not really much uses in an old client. If somebody deploys a too large Helm chart or too large values, there's also pretty much a low-level Kubernetes error that gets thrown, and where usually we as an application have to tell the customer, oh, by the way, if you have too many settings at this place, then you will receive this strange error message. So that's where we essentially rather try to say, well, if you and I manage jointly an application that after a certain version became too big, I would have to tell you anyway, or the application would have to tell you that we would recommend to use a new Helm version and the multi-secret driver versus and at the same time I could use the same new version in multi-secret mode, and I could deploy small charts, and you would not be broken, and you could work with an old version. And so that's where I had rather, so far in our design, we had rather looked at a way to say the multi-secret storage driver behaves in a compatible way for those situations where single secret is perfectly sufficient. And in those cases where the application requires more, there's anyway needs to be knowledge of the users that this chart requires the new Helm version. And so that's where I would have preferred, for coexistence reasons, that it's more intuitive if old and new versions can essentially work on single secret charts consistently and in a compatible way, as opposed to saying I globally switch, right? I don't see the same thing as saying I want Postgres as my storage backend, and I know everybody's using Postgres. This is more looking like, okay, some charts in some situations need the new Helm version, and yes, it comes at the compromise that those charts, but only those charts, need then the users that manage that application to be on the latest version. And yes, the rest would see some exception. I mean, we're still testing about that. I asked also that we see about, can we do something in the secret to have a bit more a user-friendly error message. But the dilemma is, of course, an old Helm client was not prepared that the secret has an integrity problem.
So I think, and somebody else here can argue against me, I think I'm okay if we provide context for the older Helm client to say, hey, this particular one is now using a newer feature, it's a larger chart, you need a version of Helm this size or bigger in order to work with this particular one now. They do need some kind of direction and not to just have it fail.
Yes. Yes. Where would you expect such direction? Obviously, we are an application provider usually, so we would of course indicate that to our users that if you deploy this chart, you will need the new version. would you see something machine readable? Would you want to have maybe that we place a description in the chart.yaml?
It needs to be someplace when they go perform Helm commands that they can go see it, because say they do a Helm upgrade, say they do something else, they need it to work. I'm not sure if there is a way to wedge it in to the, I'd have to go look at the structure for an existing Helm setup to see how we would do it. But if they were going to go do something, they need to understand they need to use the new driver, and it needs to be clear when using CLI output. I'm not sure how we handle it at the SDK. I really have not looked at the code paths or output here to see, because you're cramming something into a pre-existing kind of API that it wasn't designed for. And I haven't looked at the code to think that through, but I can try to find some time to do that.
Yeah, if I'm using 3.12 and I do a Helm list, I expect that the thing that I installed will be there. If it's a new secret type, which I honestly think makes sense, I don't know how you would message that. I don't know if you can use the old secret type to say that it's been moved or whatever, but I can't think of any way that would actually work.
I mean, if you introduce a new secret type,
also, I mean, like you can mark them as superseded. That would at least give you some indication that there's something else somewhere. But I don't think you can. I don't think there's any other metadata you can add to it, if I remember right, to tell the user.
No, I understand the position you're in, and we're trying to be. We're saying there's opportunity to be creative here, but I don't know what it is. And I know Mario had his hand raised, so I do want to give him a chance to say something here.
Hey, yeah, I'm not sure if I understand correctly, but I think Helm supports storage types, and one of them is secret. There's also SQL, SQLite or something, or config maps. And apparently they are, when you use the CLI, chosen by setting an environment variable. So, and then after setting this, your Helm behaves differently. So I think the question is like, do we just want to introduce a new storage type, one that is better, like secrets 2, right? And secrets 2 is
that is exactly what we did. But the question is then, if this new secret type is required, you know, version 1 to 5 perfectly work fine, version 6 or release 6, suddenly the chart became bigger, multi-chunking kicks in.
No, that wouldn't work, right? You would have to choose your storage type if you go that way. And if you export the variable, you would use that storage type. You won't see config map storage type releases. You won't see SQLite storage type releases. You would have to use the secret 1, like the old one, to see the old releases, and secret 2 to use the new ones, right? That can be bigger. So the big question is like, once that is done, do we want to have something that kind of automatically migrates single secret 1 to secret 2, right? So, is there like a fallback mechanism? Can they be compatible with each other? So I think the main question is like, is this a new storage type, or is this an extension to the existing one?
So I want to be, we're coming up to the top of the hour. I want to be respectful of everyone's time here, because I know that, you know, everyone has day jobs and stuff like that. This is some great conversation. I think we need to take this either offline or bring it to our next Helm developer meeting, because we gotta get assignments out for next week. Sorry to do that to everybody. I know it's a very passionate conversation here. We have the only shout out I can say is Matt cut a patch release for MapCube APIs. Someone found a bug, cleared it up. Yay, team. Any social media? Okay, so let's do assignments for next call. Anyone up for being a moderator? George?
George.
Yep.
All
right. Well, you're a scribe now, so you can put it in there. Who would like to take notes? Everyone jump in. I can do notes. Issue triage.
Yeah, you can put me down for that. I'll definitely be on that. And also apologies for being late today and not doing my moderator.
It's quite all right. And PR review. Is it Matt, Andrew,
I'll do
George?
Yeah. You can put my name down for sure.
Okay.
I'm blocking some time off on my calendar as well.
And then core maintainers for next week. Who do we have?
I'll be here.
I won't be here next week.
I will be
Awesome.
as well. Thanks.
We're at the top of the hour. Thank you, everybody, and we will see you next week.
Yeah, I want to add one quick thing here, just to think about with this multi-secret thing in the background. We have to think not just about CLI users, but API users who are using the SDK and the implications of that to them. And that's part of why you see, no, we can't break. We've got to be thoughtful. How do we return something here? Because those API users who may not upgrade their stuff right away, and I can think of something like Flux, what's going to be the impact on them in this kind of scenario?
Right.
Does it? Yeah, and I haven't thought through the answer to it, but this is why we're being a little bit slow in reviewing it, and we're asking these questions to see how it works, where it's going to break, that kind of thing here.
And how do you want to handle this, Matt? I mean, there was a suggestion for an off-cycle call, an offline call, offline discussions. Should we do that? And I think obviously Marco had also some opinions. Do you want to handle that off-cycle? Because I'm still convinced. I understand the other point as well, but I'm still convinced that doing a different secret type will be much worse for users.
Yes, Slack, Kubernetes Slack, Helm dev channel. If you're not in Kubernetes Slack, it's slack.kas.io for your invite. And then the #Helm, or excuse me, #Helm dash dev, and also the GitHub issue.
And loop me in by name, please. Matt Farina is my handle. My name is my handle, so I'm easy to find. Please pull me into that conversation. I have to look further to be able to respond to things. So a one-on-one call right now would be a little difficult because some questions have been raised that I actually haven't thought through. So I need to go look at what the implications of that would be.
All right, will do.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.